What do you get when you combine a bowl of bran flakes, very heavily discounted Half-Life mechanics and story, and a discounted BioShock side character? You get Industria, a game that's bland, mediocre at best, boring, and confusing as hell. Try to catch me howling at the moon. So this is another video that you could count as a review because this is one of those games I've already beaten twice. I put about 4.5 hours into beating the game on normal and hardcore. Going through normal took me about 3-ish hours because I was going slow, and the hardcore playthrough took me about an hour and a half because nothing changes between the two difficulties, except for how much ammo spawns, and even then, there's barely a difference. I never ran out of ammo. But before we get into complaining about any of that, let's start off with the story and the game's setting, and how that all works out. Industria has... I'm trying to think of a tactful way to put this. Screw it. The story is confusing as shit. It's supposed to be set at the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then you chase your coworker into a machine and time travel to the future like 20 years, which has turned into a dystopian future that has been taken over by robots with only a few surviving humans. That's the basis for the setting. The story is about finding your coworker / husband in this dystopian world, and they add in these sections that don't make sense and that are confusing as shit. There are these black and white sections in a library that are like, they're G-Man-esque when like he jumps in and is talking to you at certain points in like Half-Life and Half-Life 2. They're kind of supposed to be like that, but they don't make sense at all because there is no narration. And these library sections, they lead into this theater where there's some kind of like weird silent play that goes on in different pieces between the levels. It's very dumb. It's, in my opinion, unnecessary, and it's just like, it's a really boring walking simulator area that makes you think, maybe if I was on acid, I'd understand this play. The story of the whole game would have been fine, even like decent, if not for these stupid library walking simulator sections that are there for no reason in between levels. There is a way that they could do like these library sections, if they did them a bit differently, like it could work, but in between levels, it doesn't work at all. And we will discuss how they could do that, but that will be in next video on Industria's problems and how I think they could be fixed. I don't want to talk about the story and stuff for too long, and I want to talk about the gameplay and move into kind of like the game's design in general. But let's talk about the gameplay next. Industria's gameplay is passable, but it feels like it was just made straight from one of the online courses about making an FPS. The only guns that are included are a pistol, an SMG, a shotgun, and a sniper rifle. And the game's mechanics, they feel very cookie cutter. They're not bad, but they're not great. There's nothing that makes the game stand out as a game. If we go with the examples from before, Half-Life had the gravity gun to set itself apart from the crowd, and BioShock had its plasmid powers. Industria has an overpowered sniper rifle that one-shots basically anything, and that's about it. Every other mechanic in the game can be made by anyone by taking an online course on Game Dev TV or Skillshare. Hell, I've done those ones. I've made stuff following courses on Skillshare and on Game Dev TV, and I could replicate this game, at least the game's mechanics, myself with those probably. The level design of Industria it's kind of bland and uninteresting in the terms of its level design. Most of the game, you'll be fighting enemies on the same plane as you. Sure, there are some areas where there is elevation, but a lot of the time I just felt like everything needed to be up close and personal. It didn't feel like there was any elevation change when it came to fighting most of the enemies. The art design in the game is good, and it makes the world feel like it's an abandoned city that's been taken over by robots, so it has that going for it. And in general, the level design is alright when it comes to indicating the direction you need to go, but in other places, there is no indication at all of where you should go. You just have to run around and find something to use to open a door to the next area. The worst culprit of this is in the warehouse, where you have to fight 4 enemies and then you have to find your way up to the top of the rafters, basically. Find the wheel to open a door and then figure out what door you have to open. But there's no indicator of you pick the thing up, a light shines over on where you're supposed to do it, where you're supposed to use it. There's none of that. There's no indication. And you just have to run around and figure out, like, where the hell am I supposed to go? What does this attach to? But the thing that's worse than that is the AI and the encounter design. Two types of enemies in the game look interesting. The lumbering basic one that you run into early on, and the chicken leg exploder guys that will just charge you and try to suicide bomb you. Both fairly interesting looking, and I like the design of them. The other two enemies, the two more humanoid looking ones, feel like they don't fit in the world. They feel too new, too clean in this dystopian world. One's completely white and charges at you, but if you close a door in their face, they'll just stop there and not be able to go through that door at all. And the other guy just has a machine gun that he's carrying and will shoot at you from a distance, and it's your normal first-person shooter enemy. I'm not saying these two enemies are bad, they just aren't that interesting to fight or in terms of design. And the game's AI in general is not very interesting or very hard to beat. Even on hardcore with limited ammo, I never ran out of ammo or even got low. And the enemies, they never posed a threat because the first ones will just walk at you and you can literally back up faster than they walk at you. The chicken leg exploder guys will just charge you and try to suicide bomb you. You hit them like 4 times and they die. The charging ones, you can pull out your shotgun and just shoot them like once or twice in the head and they're going down. Machine gun ones, they're hard until you get the sniper rifle, which is way overpowered, and you can just one-shot them in the face. It's fairly simple and fairly easy to defeat every single enemy because the encounter design that they have in the game is honestly, in my opinion, it's just bad. I've been able to just like run around a corner and the AI stops detecting me and goes back into its search or its patrol mode. I've been able to shut a door and the AI with knives for hands, the white one, can't get through the door to get to me and it just patrols around a room while I shoot it through a window, or it just stands there. None of the game's encounters are all that challenging. Even the big set piece that they have close to like end of the game, it's not challenging. You activate the event, you can quickly get to the closed platform and climb up it and hit that switch, and then quickly go down the stairs, run across the room to the other platform, activate that, and have the elevator come down, and you can just stand on that platform. Sometimes stuff will run up to you. Other times, they're just walking around on the platforms or walking around on the ground. And it's their AI and their pathing and their detection that is not great, and I don't think the encounter is super well designed because you can hold one, there's only one way up each of the platforms, and you can hold that off very easily. So none of the encounters in this game are anywhere remotely challenging. Normally, this would be the place where I give you a but, where I just go, but this, and this are good about the game. I honestly can't think of anything good about the game because, like I said at the beginning, the game is mediocre at best. It's not that everything is bad about the game, it's just that it's all mediocre. The gunplay and the overall design is mediocre at best. The story is just dumb, and the AI isn't even as smart as a bag of rocks. I am trying to think of something nice to say. The voice acting, it's not horrible, I guess. The game's nothing to write home about, and I heard it's supposed to be a part 1, but that is never mentioned. If the game said Industria part 1, I'd be like, okay, this is just the beginning. Let's see where they go with it. But as a standalone game, the game's just bland. Like I said, it's mediocre. It's not one of those games that it's like, oh, you have to go play this. It's just there. I want to make at least one more video on this game because I don't like just insulting a game. I like pointing out the things that I think are bad with it, but I don't like leaving it just at that, like, this is why the game's bad. I like to talk about how it could be possibly changed and improved. So I'm planning on putting out a Industria Problems video that I want to go more in depth with how dumb the story is, how the AI could probably be improved, and I want to talk about the encounter design more and how that could really be improved to actually make the game challenging and just feel better. But for now, I am going to end this 10-hour impression/review, and I hope you guys have a royal day. I'll talk to you next week, or maybe later this week. Who knows what I'm gonna do. Peace.